Hello, welcome to the Red Devils Den podcast. So this is probably the biggest one we've done so far with a Europa League final on the horizon. So that's obviously coming up Wednesday. We'll be talking about it today, obviously. But first of all, Manchester United versus Wolves. We'll be discussing that first. So Daniel, do you want to sort of kick that off and give us your thoughts on it?
I thought we played really well. I would kind of split it into two halves. In the first half of the game, we were by far the better team. We created a lot. We were doing well. We were playing well. And then in the second half, Wolves came back into it and we had to really show that we could defend. We were defending a lot more in the second half than the first half. And I think the team answered both questions. I think the performance was a lot better than I thought it was going to be when we saw the team. And yeah, I think we played really well. And Ahmed and Elanga both came out of that with a lot of credit. They both did really well.
Yeah, I was really impressed with them as well. United Resurgent, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think Dan's nailed it on the head there. Basically, it was a game of two halves, and then the first half we were by far the more creative side. We obviously scored the 2 goals, so it was a very good half. But then the second half was honestly more impressive for me in some ways, because with young players, one of the biggest concerns that you have is game management. And we saw that the young players who were on the pitch, and even the ones who came on off the bench, were able to put in a fantastic performance and make sure that we ground out the win. Wolves scored most of their goals in the second half, so it was expected that they would come at us, and we were able to withstand the assault. And then the other big positive was it looked like we were finally starting to adapt a little bit to defending without Harry Maguire, because he's been such a crucial part of our team for the last 2 years or so now, that it was a big change when he got injured, and you could see that the chemistry wasn't quite right the past couple of matches, but we did much better in that regard against Wolves. And one unfortunate goal aside, we did pretty well defensively. So I was really pleased with the performance. Like Dan said, it was better than what I was expecting.
Yeah, definitely. And last but not least, Vim, what did you think about it? I think we're all pretty happy.
Yeah, like the two have said, overall it was a pretty happy performance. I think the fact that we played a bunch of youngsters, and what I really liked about yesterday was that this side really enjoyed to attack going forward on the ball. You could see that they were eager to go forward, the likes of Ahmad and Alanga making all those runs, and then James as well on the wings. And you had Marta and Van de Beek, who were all attacking players, and you had just had Matic as the lone sort of defensive player sitting in front of the defense. And so it was a really balanced squad, you could say. And yeah, I really had no issues when they conceded, because I knew that given the way we were playing and given the fact that we really wanted to attack every time we got the ball, I knew that we were going to score a second goal. And so, yeah, really happy. And again, the fact that there weren't any injuries, we didn't have to use any of our first team players. It was perfect man management, game management from Oli. So overall, 3 points and season with a win, unbeaten for the whole season, and now we head into the Europa League final with a bit of confidence.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Daniel, you had one more thing to say, didn't you?
Yeah, so Daniel actually passed that off to me when we were talking. We had a related point. So the point I wanted to, or not the point, but the question I had for Daniel as our resident youth academy expert is, of the young players who played yesterday. I know everyone thinks Ahmad is going to be here next season and play an increased role, given he cost 20 million. But with Elanga, with Hannibal Mabry, I think is it Mabry or Magebry? I don't know how you say that, but with Hannibal, with Will Fish, with Shola Shoretire, I wanted to ask, does he think any of them are going to have a role to play in the first team next season? Or do you think that they're going to be out on loan or back in the academy? So just wanted to see what Daniel thought about that.
Okay, so Will Fish is probably the easiest one to answer. He was very much in the squad because of circumstances that if the schedule wasn't so hectic, if Maguire wasn't injured, his development is just continue playing academy football. It was just the circumstances that that meant he was in there. He's 17, which for a centre back is nothing. So yeah, I fully expect him to just have another year in the academy. Ahmad, I think we just need to get used to the idea now that he is a first team player. It's not about loaning him out anymore. It's not about anything like that. He is a first team player now. He might not be, he's obviously not in the starting 11, but he's a first team squad player. Hannibal, I think it didn't surprise me at all to find out to see yesterday that he was very impressive. He looked completely at ease at the level. And so, yeah, I think he is someone that will and should, I've made this point for a while, should go the Greenwood route. I don't think he needs a loan. I think he's that good that he'll be absolutely fine here, and it'll be more beneficial to have him learning from players like Bruno than being out on loan. Shoretire, he will stay, but I'm a bit unsure as to the route he'll go. As in, he's still only 17 and he's quite small. So do you keep him in the academy and then give him the odd game, odd cameo here and there in the first team? It's a tricky situation, because if you were gonna send him out on loan, then he's still only 17 and he's not really there physically yet, so it might be a bit soon for that. So I'm a bit unsure as to what might be the route for him, but then I think and Alanga then is the final one. Personally, and this goes against the report that we saw earlier today, I think he should go out on loan. I can't see him getting enough minutes in his position to make the trade-off of not being on loan worth it. But the report earlier today suggested that he might be staying. I'm not convinced I agree with that. I agree with that, Ollie's decision on that, but we'll see how that one progresses.
So what was the reasoning behind wanting to loan Elanga? I mean, I understand that. Is it because the first team pathway is congested? We've got a lot of wingers. We're looking to maybe bring in another one this summer. Or is it because he's not physically ready, you think?
More the former. I think it's because to develop, you need enough game time, and I just can't see him getting it. Because you've obviously got Rashford first and foremost at left wing, and left wing is his best position. And then you've got James, then you've got Pogba if he's going to play some games at left wing, and you've obviously got Sancho if we sign him, and Ahmad, who can both do a job at left wing. And I can't see him getting enough minutes there. And I feel like Hannibal would get more minutes in this squad than Elanga would. So I feel like it would make more sense for him to be out on loan, playing every week, and then maybe next season, as maybe the 22-23 season is one that you could look at saying, well, has he developed enough that maybe you move James on and Elanga takes his place? That will probably be my attitude towards it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that anyway, but the surgeon wanted to ask as well. But yeah, just one last thing in terms of the match. What were your man of the matches, if that's even a word? Do you want to go first, Daniel? What do you think?
I was really impressed with Donny. I think if you compare that performance in the pivot to one of his earlier games in the pivot, the difference is huge. He's no longer acting like a second striker, despite supposedly playing in the pivot. He actually held his position. He looked more comfortable than he did earlier in the season. I was just really impressed.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Axel's got to be up there as well. I thought Ahmad really had a mature, composed performance as well, because it was like whenever they gave the ball to Ahmad, it was like he knew exactly what he was going to do. Like he already had years of experience, and I think when you have that kind of maturity so early on, it's really, it's a trait that's really, impressive. Vin, did you have a man of the match?
Yeah, I mean, like Daniel said, Donny was quite impressive. I think this was one of his best games in the United shirt, I would say, after Southampton. But besides that, I think he was really good. He's looking really good. He was proactive, even on and off the ball. And yeah, he just looked like he wanted to create, and he was linking up really well with Mata and Ahmad and even James. So he was really impressive. But I'm actually going to go for an unconventional option, which is Matic. I just felt that he was just out there doing all these trickeries and doing all sorts of pulling off all sorts of moves out there in the middle of that pitch, and which I've not seen him do that this season. I guess the fact that it's the last game of the season, there isn't much to play for. Just go out there with pressure-free, play yourselves. And I think that's the reason why he just came out and he just looked pretty solid. And he was pulling off these tricks, and I was like, whoa, where did this come from? Where was this Matic early in the start of the season where we needed him? So yeah, I think he was really good today. I didn't expect that from Matic. So I'm just gonna go for him for that reason alone. I'm just gonna go for him as the man of the match.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought he was an absolute general because, I mean, again, he's same as Ahmad was really in that game, just so composed and knows exactly what he's doing. Obviously, with him, there's less of a a given trait from from the God or whatever. It's more of experience and stuff like that. But he's got that as well, and it's really impressive. So United Resurgent, your man of the match.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to talk about a couple of the players that were mentioned. I thought Donny van de Beek held his position much better. It was definitely, he's starting to understand the way that we play. He's also trying to play quicker first-time passes the way that Pogba or Bruno Fernandes would when they play in the pivot or when they play at all. So it's nice to see that he's adapting to the way we play, and I think a full preseason will help with that. But he wasn't my man of the match. My man of the match actually is Ilanga, and the reason for that is he is a young kid who is playing his second first team match. And I thought when you score a bullet header like that, and in a way, I mean, I know it wasn't the second goal, but it was the only goal we scored from open play, and it was a bullet header. So for me, that kind of clinched it for him. I also thought his performance was just much improved because when he played against Leicester, I thought he looked like a headless chicken. At times you could see he started on the left, but then he would end up standing 2 feet away from Diallo, and you were just wondering, or 2 feet away from Ahmad, sorry, and you'd be wondering what is he doing? Where's his positioning? And he's this time he was a lot better with that. And then also, I think a little shout out is deserved for Alex Telles and Brandon Williams, who probably had one of their better defensive performances, in my opinion. Usually, what happens when we play those two is the opposition wingers might as well have nobody in front of them. That's what's been going on most of this season. They've not been defensively solid fullbacks at all. Brandon Williams was last season. We know Alex Telles is still adapting from his move from Porto, so it's not an indictment of him after 8-9 months in the club. But it's been frustrating at times that Ollie hasn't been able to rotate his fullbacks because those two haven't been able to put up defensively what Ollie needs. And I thought that they were much, much better yesterday, and that was nice to see. But Elanga is my man of the match.
Okay, that's fair enough. So, okay, away from Manchester United versus Wolves, then obviously we all want to talk about the Europa League final. So, Daniel, what are your thoughts on sort of how important winning this trophy is? Do you think it sort of defines our season in a way? Because I don't know, in my mind, it's a good season anyway, even if we lose it. But what do you think?
I think it's really important going forward, but I don't think it's a season-defining moment. I think we've still had a very good season regardless. But yeah, it makes a big difference going forward because it's Ollie will want to start to bring that winning culture in the team, get them used to getting over the line, and that's this trophy will go a long step towards that. So when you have these moments, these big games, if you can draw on the fact, oh, we did this, we won the Europa League, we've already done it in the future, and I think that's a big thing. I think that was a big thing with Sir Alex's teams as well, when that belief that you've done it before, we can do it again, and that. So I think this is an important game in that respect. That if we do win it, then this squad will have in the incoming years saying, "Oh, we've won this, we've got over the line before, we can do it again." So yeah, I do think it's an important game. I just don't think it's the only way you define our season. So I think it's more complicated than that. So yeah, that's kind of my answer.
Yeah, 100%. Finn, how important do you think winning this final is?
Yeah, so the start of the season, I remember saying this, that if we get top four, if we improve on our third place finish and we get any trophy, be it the FA Cup or the Europa League, that would be a successful season for me. Now, by success, I mean, I know success is a loose word that I'm using here, but I would say that in terms of making progress, that would be a very good season for us, given that we finished third, but then didn't really win anything last season. So the season winning one trophy and finishing in the top three again would be the objectives, and we are perfectly on track for that. We finished second, and we are in a Europa League final, which is, I think, the best. If you have to argue, being in a Europa League final would be the best of all finals that we are in uh, all season, given the fact that you're out of the Champions League into the Europa League. If you have to compare the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, and the Europa League, I think everyone would want to win the Europa League more than anything else, just because it's a European competition.
So the thing
And
with
so we're
that, then,
perfect.
though, I have to disagree with you there. I think I would honestly rather not be in the Europa League at all, be in the Champions League, and then go win the FA Cup. Because the FA Cup
Yeah,
is a
I mean,
competition we're in every season. It can be part of a treble. The Europa League is a competition. I hope we win it on Wednesday and then are never in it again.
yeah, I mean, I understand, but given the context we're in, normally, obviously, I wouldn't want to be in the Europa League either. But what I was trying to say was, given the context we're in, given the situation we're in, I think all of us would favor the Europa League over like the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup for that matter. That's what I meant. So just one last game, play your strongest team, go out there and get that trophy, and it would really boost Ollie as well as a manager, because everyone's been talking about, yes, he's got us back to the top fours, but there's no trophies. Well, if he wins it on Wednesday, that should shut up some of those critics out there.
Yeah, United version. Do you think is season defining? Would you say that?
I don't think it's season defining. I think it's important to win a trophy because I think when you bring in one trophy, it increases the ability of the squad to realize, okay, you know what, we can win finals, we can do this again and again and again. I think Ollie's alluded to this before, that it kind of increases your hunger as a club and your ability as a club mentally to be able to go on and win more trophies in the future. So it's important from that perspective. And obviously in 10, 15 years time, when people look back on, or hopefully he'll still be in the job, but if he's not at that point for whatever reason, whenever Ollie eventually moves on, people will look back and say, what trophies did you win? People aren't going to look back and say, oh, he finished second in this season and third in this one. So ultimately, it is about the trophies, but they're not the best gauge of progress. If you look at it, Arsenal won the FA Cup last season. They did not progress in the league this season whatsoever. You look at it, and Wigan have won the FA Cup. You look at it, Birmingham City have won the League Cup. Swansea won it. You saw Liverpool under Kenny Dalglish won a League Cup, and that didn't go anywhere. So the idea that you have to win a trophy to be able to be making progress, I think it doesn't make sense. The biggest thing is you want to show improvement in the league. My expectations this season were a 70-plus point season in the league. I didn't think we'd finish second. I was expecting either third or fourth with 70-plus points, and second with 74 points, in my opinion, is a very good league season, and it shows progress regardless of what happens in the Europa League final. But obviously, winning a trophy could be the catalyst for more. So it's important for us to go out there and try to make our best effort to win it against a man who is a specialist in this competition in Unai Emery.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so now it's time to move on to the Manchester United versus Villareal preview. So we'll get onto that now. Okay, so moving on to Manchester United versus Villareal, obviously absolute massive game in Gdansk. So the Europa League final. United versus you know a little bit about Villareal, don't you? So tell us, how do they play?
Yeah, so Villareal play differently in big matches and the kind of the normal league matches that they face. In the big matches, they've primarily been playing a 4-4-2 formation this season. So I think we can expect that. And they usually have about 44-45% possession. So I would expect them to defend in two deep blocks of four, and then have Paco Alcacer and Gerard Moreno up front. Moreno's the big goal threat. He's the one who has 29 goals in all competitions this season, 23 in La Liga. Alcacer has 12 and 6 in the league. And then after that, it's like all in single digits. So the big goal threat really is Gerard Moreno. The right winger they have, who's quite talented, Chukwueze, who got injured against Arsenal. They haven't confirmed whether he's going to be available or not, but he missed the match against Real, so it's looking unlikely. A little bit like Harry Maguire, where it would be a surprise if he played. And he's a very talented player. He can take his man on and beat him, and he would give Luke Shaw a difficult match. So it's a good thing that he's not going to be available probably for us. Most of the goals are going to come from the front. The defensive the midfielders in the 4-4-2 are basically going to be defensive. They have a couple of goals, so maybe 3-4 goals this season, 5-6 assists at most. But there's no Bruno Fernandes figure or Jack Grealish figure we need to look out for. Really, they're a team that's going to be trying to hit us on the break. And so we just have to be very careful in our organization on and off the ball, and hopefully we'll be okay. The biggest thing is covering Gerard Moreno. The good news is he is 5'11", so and I think that's 1.8 meters tall. So the beauty of that is because we're missing Harry Maguire, probably we're not too worried. He's not a tall striker, right? So Eric Bailly, Axel Tuanzebe, Lindelof, whoever is on him should be able to cover him. And it's just about keeping up with him. And if we can do that and we can shut down Moreno, then we've largely shut down Villareal. Oh, and I should say, sorry, one more thing. I am going to just comment on the left foot of Pau Torres as as an attacking asset for Villarreal. They do love switching the ball to the right flank, because if you give Torres space and time on the ball, then he can pick out passes that most of our defensive midfielders can. You should effectively imagine Paul Pogba at center back if you give him space. I mean, he's obviously nowhere near as good as Pogba if you press him, but he has the range of passing of Pogba if he's given 10, 15 meters and we sit back. So it's very important that Edinson Cavani and he's a very willing presser, but it's important that Ollie lets him go ahead and say, okay, Edinson, just shut down Pau Torres. As soon as he gets the ball, I want you to close him down and make him and put him under pressure. Raul Albiol's the other center back. He's nowhere near as good of a passer of the ball. So we need to shut that down at the source.
One more thing. Would you say they're the sort of team that sort of will come out and press us and attack us? Because, with the players like Rashford, Cavani are running behind. Do you think they're that sort of team we can really hurt them on the counter like that?
I think it's going to be difficult to do that. Villarreal have played multiple ways this season, as we saw with Unai Emery when he was at Arsenal. So he's going to have an individual strategy for this match, which might involve pressing it or might not. I can't really predict. But what I can tell you is in the first leg against Arsenal, in the first half especially, they really came out and pressed Arsenal and scored 2 goals off of that very, very quickly. But in the second half and in the second leg, they sat much deeper and let Arsenal come on to them. So they can play both ways, and it's not entirely clear what they'll be doing. If I had to guess, Emery is a cautious manager by nature. I would expect 2 deep banks of 4, and then we're going to have to break that down. And the moment we turn the ball over, they're basically going to be looking to get the ball forward quickly and then try to exploit spaces in our defense, because they're not the kind of team where if we sit deep, they're going to be able to pick through passes and break us down. It's the kind of situation where they're going to ask us to come onto them, and then the gaps that we leave, they'll try to exploit.
All right, thanks. Yeah, that was a really good sort of overview of Villarreal. So, Vin, are you confident for this game? Biggest game of the season. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, there's a bit of nervousness. There's a bit of confidence. There's a bit of anxiousness, obviously, because it's the first final for Ollie as a manager, and for most of these players in a United shirt. And so it's going to be it's a huge game. There's going to be fans in the stadium, so that's going to be something to sort of cheer on about. So you can expect our fans to cheer the team on, when sort of a bit down in the dumps. So they have a bit. It's not like they're playing in front of an empty stadium. There's a bit of inspiration out there in the stands. But talking about the game itself, obviously Villarreal are no pushovers. They're going to be heading to this game with a decent run of form, I believe. Did they win the last 3 games, Sergeant?
Their last three. So I know they beat Sevilla. They lost to Real Madrid the weekend, so they definitely haven't won their last three. Yeah, it's been mixed, but they've been, I would say, in similar form to us, but a little bit better.
Right. So yeah, so similar patch as us. But yeah, we can't underestimate them by any means. You know, Unai Emery has a very, very good track record in this competition, and that's something which cannot be taken for granted. Even though on paper we definitely are a better team, we definitely have better players, but that doesn't guarantee us a victory right from the first whistle. We need to play really well for that. And like Certain said, we don't really know what sort of system Villareal are going to come out with. Either they're going to sit back and hope for us to lose the ball and then hit us on the counter, or they're going to come out and play very aggressive football. And so it'll be interesting to see how they play out. But as for us, we have to stick to our plan, stick to what has worked for us so far, play our strongest team, and just focus for 90 minutes. Forget everything else. Forget the Euros. Forget what lies ahead of those 90 minutes. Just focus on in the moment. And yeah, I see no reason why we can't win this game. But if we slack ourselves, then they've got every bit of chance as much as us.
Just one more thing to note, I should mention, this is going to be the biggest night in Villarreal's club history, not just because they're facing off against us, and we're obviously a massive, massive club, but because this club has won, or Villarreal have won Intertoto Cups, they've won the third division in Spain, but they've never won La Liga, they've never won even the second division in Spain, they've never been to a European final before, so this is the most meaningful match in the 98-year history of Villarreal. And they've got a lot of academy players, like Pau Torres, for example, who have been there and they've been supporting this team since they were 8, 9, 10 years old. And now they're on the pitch and they're going to give absolutely everything. So the one thing that we can be sure of is if United's intensity drops even 2%, Villarreal will take advantage of that. This is going to be a highly motivated, highly capable group of players, and we have to be able to match that intensity. We can't look at it as, oh well, it'll be nice icing on the season, or it's a second tier competition to win. If the players slack off at all, Villarreal will take advantage of that. This is the biggest night in a lot of their careers. Like Gerard Moreno scored almost 30 goals this season. He's never won a trophy in his career. So for him, it's the biggest night of his career. It's the biggest night in Villarreal's history. So it's just going to be a massive, massive event. And so United have to be at their best.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small town. I was reading Andy Mitton's piece on Villareal just a few days back. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely do. He talks about, you know, what the people over there are looking forward to the game. And, it's a small town of 50,000 people. That's the population. And so for them, you can understand how big a night it is. And yeah, again, Andy Mitton explains it really well. So if you haven't read that, do check it out. And you can understand why Emery and the players and the staff members are really, really looking forward to it and they're up for it. So yeah, just don't slack.
Putting it another way, when Oli signed for United, Villarreal had never even played in La Liga. They'd always been a second, third division side. So most of their success has come in the last 20 years, such as it is. They haven't really won trophies, but they've at least been in La Liga. They've been competing for in the Europa League and the Champions League every now and again. And yeah, this is going to be absolutely massive for them. So obviously, obviously we want United to win, but I'm just happy we're facing them in the final and not Arsenal, because if we lost to Arsenal, it would be an absolute disgrace. If we lose to Villarreal, we can at least be happy for this town, this group of people, and this club. Very well run group of people, very well run institution.
Yeah, and they have that extra incentive of Champions League football as well, because they finished 7th, didn't they, in the Liga?
That's correct. Yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me. Because they finished 7th, they're going to be going into the Europa Conference League next season with Tottenham. And so it's important that they win this match, because they can't stay in the Europa League. Either if they lose, they're going to the conference, or if they win, they go into the Champions League. So it's either a promotion or a relegation.
Yeah, that's massive then for them. So yeah, lastly, Daniel, are you confident for this game?
Yes, in the sense of, if we turn up and we play well, we should win. We are the better team. And so I'm confident in that respect. I am a little bit wary of the impact of missing Maguire and then the fixture congestion of this season. But my overriding emotion is confidence that I think we're going to win.
Yeah, I think missing Maguire is probably going to be one of the biggest things. I mean, there's still a chance he sort of turns up out of nowhere. Obviously, sort of rumours there may be, the crutches were just for show to deceive people, and he's actually going to be okay. But yeah, I mean, when he doesn't play, we're suspect from crosses and set pieces as it is. But when he doesn't play, we're half as good at them. We seem to concede from a cross or a set piece every time he doesn't play. So yeah, it's a massive miss in his leadership as well. He's playing out from the back. Nobody else can do what he does in our team. But yeah, so in terms of the starting 11, unless there's anything else, we'll move on to that. Unless there's any other points anyone else wants to make. Okay, so I don't think it's that debatable, to be honest. I guess we'll start with the goalkeeper because that's probably one of the bigger points. United resurgent. Who would you start in goal?
So last season, I said that in the semifinals, Ollie should have stuck with Romero. I wasn't a fan of him switching to De Gea. I think if you have a cup keeper, and it's not the Champions League, obviously, but if you have a cup keeper in the EFL Cup, the FA Cup, the Europa League, then you let them play the final of that competition. And for the last round or two, David De Gea has been our cup keeper. This could be potentially his last match in the shirt. So for me, as much as I think Dean Henderson is now the better goalkeeper, I would start David De Gea just for the consistency of it. And obviously his chemistry with a lot of the team that plays is better. He's played more matches with them. So I would go with De Gea.
Would anyone, I mean, Vin, would you play De Gea or are you more on the Henderson side of things?
Well, Vin's actually quite a big fan of Lee Grant in the final. So
That was just for the laughs, for certain. But I mean, in all seriousness, yeah, I'm backing David De Gea for this one. For the pure reason that of late we've seen a clear distinction between the two in the sense that Henderson plays in the league while David De Gea plays in the cups. So why change that? I mean, and again, it takes me back to the FA Cup semi-final where we played David De Gea and Sergio Romero, when it should have been the other way around. And you could say he was one of the reasons why we lost that game. And so I see no reason why Henderson should be chosen over David De Gea for this one. I mean, given the fact that he's also David De Gea has also looked pretty good if you think about it. His recent performances have been quite impressive, which definitely warrants him a start.
Yeah, he made some great saves in that second leg against Roma as well. Daniel, would you play De Gea or Henderson? Because I know you're a big fan of Henderson.
I am, yeah, but that's in general. So then going forward for this specific game, I think for the reasons the others mentioned, I would go with De Gea, but also just his experience. I think in the final that is having that experience is something quite invaluable, and obviously Henderson doesn't have that yet. I'm very confident we'll get to the stage where he is our experienced keeper a few years down the line. But in terms of right now in the final, I'd probably rather De Gea, and then hopefully he will sign off his time at the club with a trophy.
Yeah, I think there was a report from ESPN saying that whoever doesn't start is the end of their United career. Like, I just don't get that. Did you think there was any sort of reliability in that at all?
absolutely not. I mean, the issue is you have these media organizations like Sky Sports when Ollie decided to go with De Gea against Fulham, or with this particular decision in ESPN. They're not out there trying to report facts. What they're doing is they're trying to get clicks by basically playing up this conflict that only one can live while neither can live while the other survives, kind of Harry Potter style, right? So that's what they're pushing, and it's just not true. The situation is that Ollie will have made a decision based on the whole season, and Ollie will then go ahead and pick his keeper for next season based on that. The idea that one selection tells you who's going to be playing in net next season is asinine. It's ESPN being ESPN. I don't expect a lot from an organization that employs Mark Ogden and Steve Nicol. I mean, they're an absolute disaster and a disgrace to the name of journalism.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think there was any sort of credence in that report at all. I mean, I don't think Henderson would start anyway, because even if Ollie does see him as the keeper going forward, which he probably does. But yeah, so in terms of the defense, United resurgent, who would you go with?
So for me, it's a relatively straightforward selection. Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, and Luke Shaw walk in. They're the first choice back four. The question is who partners Lindelof at the heart of defense. Harry Maguire, if he's fit, obviously, but I don't think he will be. And we had this discussion last week. I know most people are going to disagree with me, and I know I'm going to be outvoted on it, but I would go with Eric Bailly over Axel Swanzebe. I know he's gotten a lot of praise for the performance on the weekend. I thought there were a couple of moments where Axel Swanzebe was an absolute liability. There was the moment where he passed the ball lazily out, and the Wolves were able to spring on it and have a counterattack on the basis of that. There was a moment where Axel did that thing that he did in the previous match as well, where he stepped out of defense and tried to press. He doesn't seem to realize that he's the last line of defense. So if you're a defensive midfielder, you can do that. If you're Nemanja Matic or McTominay and you vacate your space and go forward and try to get the ball, that's fine. If you do it as a center back, you're leaving a massive hole for other players to fill, and it creates passing lanes for the opposition. And so for me, as much as Eric Bailly is hit or miss, I would go with Eric Bailly to partner Victor Lindelof.
Has anyone else changed their minds after that performance? Vim, would you go with Axel or Bailly?
It's a tough one, this. I mean, Tuanzebe looked good again. Yeah, I mean, yesterday, barring that, I think that one slip up which led to the equalizer. I think otherwise he was all right. He made a few crucial tackles when Wolves had the ball in and around our box. But Egbai looks solid as well. He wasn't outstanding. He was solid. Whereas Tuanzebe was really sort of being highlighted, and for good reason. I mean, he looked really good as well. It's a tough choice, but do I want to see Tuanzebe in the final? Yes. Do I expect him to be? No. I think Oli is going to go for Eric Bailly, in my opinion, purely because of experience that Bailly has, Tuanzebe doesn't. And plus, he's also played in a Europa League final before under Jose Mourinho. And so that is something which Oli would be relying for Bailly on. Tuanzebe, as good as a defender he is in relative comparison, I think he's not going to be picked purely on the basis of experience and nothing else. And so for me, as much as I want to see Tuanzebe paired with Lindelof, and also the fact that Tuanzebe and Lindelof sort of fit perfectly, in the sense Lindelof likes to play on the right, Tuanzebe on the left. So from that perspective, I think the two of them fit. But for this game, purely on the basis of experience, I think Bailly is going to start.
So one thing I would say is the reason why Axel stands out more when he's defending, and he seems like he's having a better game than I think he really is because he's a very proactive defender. Like I said, he's pressing forward to win the ball back. He's engaging. He's making the tackle. He's stepping in, and so that gets highlighted. You see those interventions. He doesn't do the quieter parts of defending well, the things that make Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof so good. The key holding your position. Making sure that you're kind of keeping an eye on danger. You're not playing any passes that could go astray. So he's kind of become like a center back version of Fred in a way. And I realize that could be a huge positive or an insult depending on your opinion on Fred. But what I mean by it is Fred will play a hospital passer to a game, but he's also very good, and you can see that he's very active in the game. He'll win the ball back. He'll put in a tackle, and so you'll see that kind of the hits and misses with Fred. And I think you get the same thing with Axel, where you get those wonderful interceptions, you get those great tackles with Axel, but then you also have positional indiscipline, you have lazy passes. And I think those things would cost us in a final.
I'm not sure if that's just a match sharpness thing, though, because before sort of this season, where he obviously hasn't been playing, Twansby was always known, and from what I could see as well, he was always known as a player that was really good on the ball and was probably near Lindelof on that sort of scale. Do you think you'll sort of improve on that or Resurgent?
Yeah, so I think that obviously he's still a young center back, but I think he's 23, 24 years old now. So it's getting to the
23.
point,
Yeah.
23, okay. It's getting to the point where it's make or break for his United career. I think it's very clear that next season, Ollie doesn't see him as center back number 1, 2, or 3. It looks like we're in the market for a new defender, so that'll probably be the first choice partner with Harry Maguire. And I think Victor Lindelof will be Ollie's preferred alternative if one of them is injured. So I think Axel's at the point where he has to decide whether he's satisfied being a fourth or fifth choice at a club like United, or whether he wants to move on in the summer and be a very good player for somebody like West Ham, Aston Villa, Everton, something like that. And so I think he's a talented player. I don't think it's going to be an issue that it turns out he's not talented or his career doesn't pan out. I just think sometimes, as we saw with Johnny Evans, time runs its course and it's time to move on. Similar with Danny Welbeck, actually, in a way, as a striker. And I know that he was reputed to be very good on the ball. He's played some right back previously as well. So there's definitely talent there. But you have to go off of what you've been seeing for the past 2 years if you're Ollie. And Axel's been at the club for 2 years now, and he has to be judged on that, not based on the potential that he had once upon a time, as we saw in January with Timothy Fosu-Mensah, for example.
Yeah, fair enough. So obviously, Daniel, you said you'll play Axel Twansby with Lindelof the other day. Have you changed your mind or still thinking Axel?
I'm still thinking Axel, just because I don't want to play the Eric by lottery. I would be worried that we come up on the wrong side of that, and I just don't think it's worth the risk.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. So in terms of midfield, obviously McTominay was on the bench against Wolves, so we know he's not injured because there were rumours he was injured. Fred, we're still not completely sure about him, if I'm not wrong. So it's difficult. The surgeon, would you play McFred like if they're both fit, and if Fred isn't fit, who would you play then?
Yeah, it's a difficult decision. I know that some people are speculating because Ollie didn't play Greenwood or Rashford at the weekend, or Pogba, that we could see Pogba in the pivot with McTominay and then have Greenwood and Rashford on the wings. And that would definitely help us break down Villareal more effectively. But I think most of our bigger wins this season have been built on a foundation of McFred. So I'm going to stick with that if they're available. And if not, obviously you go with who's fit. But I would stick with McFred if they're available.
Yeah, fair enough. Vin, would you agree with that? Would you play McFred if both were available? What would you do if Fred is injured, like he might be?
Well, if Fred's injured, then obviously it's going to be McTominay and Pogba in the pivot. But even if Fred is fit, I'm still not going to play him. I'm still going to play McTominay and Pogba. For the reason that Fred has looked sloppy of late, and you can't risk giving the ball away the way he has been in the final. There's only so much McTominay can do alone. And in a big game like this, if you're playing a two-pivot system, you need both your pivot players to be on point for every minute of the game. You can't have any slip-ups. You can't give away the ball, and you can't sort of you can't be reckless with your high energy, which is what Fred has been doing for the past few games lately. I guess he was disastrous against Liverpool. He was okay in the game before that. He didn't play against Leicester, so he played against, I'm guessing, did he play against Fulham? No,
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I think he played against Fulham, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm not really sure myself. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I think he was okay against Fulham as well. But again, it's because it's Fulham and not like top quality opposition. And Villareal aren't Fulham. So we can't risk that. And for that reason alone, I just feel McTominay and Pogba would be a much better pivot for me. And then obviously that gives room for Rashford and Greenwood to be on the wings.
Yeah, fair enough. So Daniel, I think I know what you're going to say. I think you'll play McTominay and Fred, won't you?
Yeah, I will. It's not a case of I don't trust Pogba. I'd still have Pogba in my starting 11. I just wouldn't put him in the pivot. So yeah, I play McFred.
Yeah, okay.
But that
Someone's
raises
happy.
an interesting question for both me and Dan. That if you're playing McFred, then obviously Bruno Fernandes is going to start. Who do you leave out of Greenwood, Pogba, Rashford, and Cavani? Because only 3 of them could play.
I think we have to make the tough choice, and as Ollie mentions, it's there's lots of tough choices in management. I think we have to bench Greenwood. I think you need Rashford in the starting 11. I think so. Yeah, I think, and obviously Cavani offers his movement up front. So yeah, I would bench Greenwood and then use him, unleash him in the second half.
I fully expect that you're right. I think that's what Ollie will do. But personally, I think Greenwood is in far better form, so I would go with Mason Greenwood and then Pogba on the left.
Yeah, I do think there's a real, possibility, probability that the Rashford starts. I mean, I would personally play Greenwood if we are going to play McTominay and Fred and then Pogba on the left, because I just think Greenwood sort of deserves it more with his form lately coming off the right. I don't think Rashford has quite been there, but also if we're not playing McTominay and Fred, which I would actually consider that, I would consider playing McTominay and Pogba in the pivot, or even Fred and Pogba. I don't mind. And then you could play Rashford on the left, Greenwood on the right, Cavani up front. I think that would work really well as well, because Rashford have been so good at all season on that left hand side, and all of a sudden Pogba's just sort of took it off him, and he's good in the pivot as well, Pogba. So I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that either, especially if Villareal are going to sit back a little bit, in that sort of 4-4-2 formation, which they might. So it'll help break them down as well.
One point you made, Pogba and Fred as a partnership. I know Ollie's done this at times, and I know I go off on it every time, so I'm going to try to keep it brief. But that is the one partnership. That is the one decision I think that would make me think we're about to lose this match. Fred as a lone defensive midfielder is a recipe for disaster. I supported Fred through difficult times this season. I picked him in my team for the final, but I just can't imagine playing Fred, Pogba, and Bruno Fernandes as a midfield and thinking that's anywhere close to balanced. Honestly, I would rather see Nemanja Matic play in the final than see Fred play as a lone defensive midfielder. It just seems like a suicidal move.
Yeah, to be fair, I would prefer McTominay over Fred there, definitely. But yeah, anything else anyone wants to say? I'll move on to predictions if not.
I do think that while I wouldn't start him, Matic has a role to play in this game. At some point in the game, if it's going how we hope it will, we'll need to bring him on and control the game and see it off. But I don't think he's a starter. But yeah, as I say, I think he'll have a role to play in this game, just in the later stages.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I also think that Greenwood starts. I don't think he's going to get dropped. Yeah, I don't think Greenwood gets dropped for this one. I think he starts. We've looked in much better shape, in much better touch whenever he's come on, even as a substitute. Perfect example was the Liverpool game. The moment he comes on, we start to link up better, we start to attack better, and he scores a goal as well. And so all the more reason why I feel that on the right wing, he's our best player at the moment. And so he's going to start. Like, ideally in my lineup, Rashford and Greenwood, both of them start on the bench because I'm not being fair. And I wouldn't be surprised if Villareal are going to set back for this one. So all the more reason why you got to play Pogba, Bruno, Rashford, Greenwood. Got to play them. Because if you're going to break them down, you're going to need all 4 players.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else want to say anything? Okay, everything's out of the way then, apart from predictions. So I'm going to go biggest prediction we've done so far. 2-1 to Manchester United. What do you think, Daniel?
I think I'm going to agree with you. I don't want to just say a different scoreline for controversial sake. I think you're probably right. Villareal are a good team, so I reckon they probably do score, particularly if Maguire's not playing. But I think we'll win the game.
What do you think, Vin?
Yeah, 2-1 to Manchester United. It's been a scoreline which I've stuck with for a lot of games this season, and it has come true or whereabouts on most occasions. So I don't see us keeping a clean sheet. I think Villarreal will have an opportunity to score, and they will. But then we eventually, once they equalize, we're gonna get another goal, and then we're just gonna keep the ball to ourselves for the rest of the game. So I think that's what's gonna happen, and hopefully we see Oli lifting a trophy.
Yeah, definitely. And lastly, Resurgent, what's your prediction?
I think you guys are right for about 86 minutes or so of the match. And then I think we'll score and make it 3-1. And the reason I say that is I just watched Villarreal against Real Madrid on the weekend, and Villarreal were ahead, and then Real equalized. And Villarreal knew they needed a goal to try to qualify for the Europa League. So similarly, if we're ahead, they're going to need a goal to try to win the trophy. And when they were in that position, what I saw was Pau Torres basically did that thing you can do in FIFA, where it's play as a striker for the last 5 minutes. He was basically pretty much entirely in the opposition's half at that point, and it was just basically Raul Albiol and the two fullbacks trying to build up play. So I think if they go to that kind of a formation, then Greenwood or Rashford or somebody will pick them off on the break, and we'll win the match 3-1.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay, so we'll end there. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you watch on YouTube, do give us a like and subscribe. Elsewhere, then give us a follow. So we'll see you again very soon after the final.